Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. The will to survive is strong in these people. Today, we are going to be looking at 8 amazing people who survived the impossible. Stay tuned for number 1. This guy must be the unluckiest person that ever lived, or perhaps the luckiest. Honestly, it's up to you. But first, do like and subscribe to this channel, and watch out what we have for you at number 1, which will surprise you. Number 8. Truman Duncan. Being hit by a train most of the time is a sure way to get yourself killed in the worst possible way. But with the perfect combination of luck and the possibility of even overturning a speeding train can survive. In 2006, Truman Duncan was working at a train station in Cleburne, Texas, when sweeping under a moving train. The railroad car pulled Duncan 75 feet, and his lower body was so flattered that it was almost cut off in the middle of the waist. Somehow, the man not only stayed awake and alert, but also called 911 himself on his cell phone. Duncan implantation requires a total of 23 surgeries in 6 weeks. This calls for both legs and one of his kidneys, but he lived to tell the story. Number 7. Anatoly Burkowski. Many people think that green jobs are dangerous. No one thinks that becoming a natural scientist can be a risky trade too. Russian physicist Anatoly Brodsky has highlighted the marvelous dangers that scientists face because of the equipment they carry with them. While I was looking at a piece of equipment that was not working properly, the Bijowski was hit on the head with the Sylvia particle accelerator stick. While experts report that 1,000 rads is enough to kill anyone who comes in contact with the particle of particles that hit Burkowski, estimated at 200,000 rads. Miraculously, the lightning struck his brain and damaged a small part of his brain, and paralyzed the left side of his face. In fact, over time, his brain began to recover from the damage to new neuron pathways. When it was all said and done, he never lost his intellectual ability and returned to work a year and a half later. Number 6. Mauro Prosperi. Getting lost in the desert may seem like an impossible task. Many people lost in this arid desert have never been found dead or alive. But to have a lasting desire to live and to be willing to do whatever is needed, the following on our list proves that survival and loss in the desert are possible. Mauro Prosperi was looking for a prize as he decided to undoubtedly take on the toughest race of its kind. The Marathon des Sables is a 6-day race across the Sahara Desert. Unfortunately, a sandstorm will hit the race, causing Prosperi to get lost and confused in the desert. Walking now in the wrong direction, he will eventually come across a Muslim temple where he can take refuge. He ran on food and water after the first 24 hours, as he was not kept by any kind of long-term survival. He kept 10 days in the desert eating bats and reptiles and drinking his urine before a nomadic family found him and brought him to safety. Number 5. Vesna Volovic. What if I told you it would be extremely difficult for you to fall from 33,000 feet and survive? You would probably say yes, but you know how to use a parachute. Then I will go on to tell you that there is no parachute. And maybe you can say I'm crazy until I tell you the story of the next person on our list. Stuart Vesna Volovic boarded a Yugoslavian Airlines flight in January 1972, but he did not know that his whole life would change. In the middle of the depot, the terrorist group planted a powerful bomb that would take the lives of all the passengers and crew on board except Volovic. Miraculously, the captain somehow survived 33,000 feet. Although understandably, he was in a bad mood. He had 3 spinal cords broken in both legs and a broken skull. Miraculously, he could somehow recover fully from his miserable condition and secure a place in the Guinness Book of World Records with the ultimate fall of a parachute survivor. Number 4. Robert Evans. Earlier in this list, we found that if you were very unlucky, you would be able to survive when you were hit by a train. But what if you were hit by a train and fell off a bridge a few hours after you were hit by a car? Think of yourself as the luckiest person on the internet if all 3 of you survived. But there's one man who survived. When Robert Evans, 46, survived a car crash while riding a bicycle official at the hospital, he was released and told the man how lucky he was. Despite minor injuries, he was returned to the streets at about 3 a.m. Unfortunately, this would not be the end of Evans' visit to the hospital that day. About 4:45 a.m. that day, Evans was crossing a railway bridge when he was suddenly struck by a coal train. It sits bludgeoning 10 feet from the bridge to the river below. Surprisingly, Evans recovered from the life-threatening injury and was later released from the hospital later that day. Number 3. Greg Rasmussen. Surviving the desert is hard enough, but surviving the desert after surviving a plane crash is almost impossible. But the following entry on our list accomplished the impossible. Not only did he survive the plane crash under the harsh desert conditions, but he did so without using either of his legs. While flying over the Kalahari Desert, Greg Rasmussen found himself facing a strong wind that would eventually cause his plane to crash. Lost in the desert sands crash can make his legs completely useless, a situation that could leave many people ready to quit the war, but not Rasmussen. He went into the shade of a tree to escape the evil sun while he waited for deliverance. It would be 24 hours before rescuers found the man. Meanwhile, he encountered vultures, elephants, and lions crawling under the rubble and smashing debris to ward off predators. More than 100 surgeries would be needed to replace part of the man's legs. Number 2. Now is the time to make the best choice of the day. And today, we will be looking at solid evidence that you do not need to drink and drive. Carlos Rodriguez received a very unusual nickname from his friends. Somehow, he survived an accident that left him with only half of his head. Rodriguez blames his unique appearance on a car accident caused by alcohol and drugs, in which he crashed into a post and was knocked out of his front window. And you could guess further. It didn't take long for him to tell us about it. Carlos says he has an accident at the age of 14, but he and his unusual head recently became infected. His shooting of the cup was circulated online after he was arrested for prostitution. In a video interview, Carlos had this advice for any unsuspecting teens who might be watching. And this is how the older boys come out, which is why they can't drink and drive. They're not good kids. Is drinking and driving the only bad thing you know? Is that you don't listen to persecution? Be sure to follow that advice. So, dear viewers, please read Happy's advice to look up to survive this accident with half of his head missing. Many others in the past were not so lucky. Number 1. Frane Selleck. Finally on our list, we will meet the lucky or very unlucky person alive. It depends on your opinion at least. At number 1 on our list, I introduce you to your Croatian music teacher, Frane Selleck. Cheating death 7 times in his life story is almost unbelievable. At the age of 33, Selleck boarded a plane that had flown across the river. A total of 17 people died, but he survived. Just a year later, he was sucked out of a plane by a sloping door that rested on a grass pole and survived when the plane itself crashed and killed 19 people. As if that wasn't enough, 3 years later, he was on a bus boarding a plane. Road Rage 4. But he went again and again. This was not the end of his bad luck. Good luck. The engine of this car exploded twice at the ages of 41 and 44, but both times he survived. He was then hit by a bus at the age of 66 and survived a serious car accident at the age of 67. However, I eventually took advantage of the situation when Selleck won the lottery at the age of 74, but soon realized that money could not buy happiness. He gave his family and friends enough money to support himself and his wife when they were 81 years old, and he lived the last years of his life in peace. Which inspiring story of survival touched you the most? Let us know in the comment section down below what more videos about amazing people put on any of the videos you see on the screen. As always, everybody, thanks for all of you watching and see you next time.